forest behind our house always seemed a little off, but I didn't think much of it until things started happening. The place looked like it was straight out of a movie. Dense trees, dark corners, and way too quiet. I'm talking silent. You'd expect birds, maybe a squirrel running by, anything. But nope, not a single sound. It felt like the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Ellie, my 8-year-old, was obsessed with it. You know how kids are with their weird, mysterious obsessions. "It's magic, Dad," she'd tell me as she picked flowers from the edge of the yard, making them into potions. "The quiet people watch over us." She'd say it so seriously, like she was in on a secret I'd missed. "Quiet people, huh? Sounds like something out of a weird kids show," I joked, trying to brush it off, but it was hard not to notice how her stories always had that eerie vibe. "Are they friends with the monsters under your bed too?" I smiled, but the joke didn't really land with her. "They're not monsters," she said matter-of-factly. "They protect us, but they don't like loud things." "Loud things, huh? Like my singing in the car?" I teased, making my way to the door as I grabbed my keys. "Guess I'll keep it down then." She didn't laugh. She just nodded, her little face serious. I chalked it up to another of Ellie's odd phases, a mix of imagination and too many cartoons. Life went on, but then things started happening. Small things at first. One evening, I went outside to check on her, just a quick glance, when I saw Ellie standing in the yard, staring at something in the distance. I thought she was just looking at the trees again, lost in one of her daydreams. But when I called her name, I noticed it. The stuffed bunny she always carried around, Mr. Flopsy, was lying on the ground. The thing was torn to pieces. A patch of fluff here, a button there, like someone had shredded it with purpose. It wasn't the kind of thing a kid would do in a fit of rage or even a storm. It was deliberate. "Ellie?" I called again, heart starting to race. She turned, her face pale, her eyes wide but unfocused. "They don't like Mr. Flopsy," she said quietly. "He didn't follow the rules." I stood frozen for a second. I've seen kids play rough, with toys, but this was different. Way different. "You didn't do this, right?" I tried to keep my voice steady. She just shrugged. "They don't like loud things." Okay. Now I was really starting to feel that creeping sense of dread. This wasn't just a weird thing kids do. This felt off. Something was happening. Something bigger than I could see. But I still dismissed it. It had to be a coincidence, right? Kids have their weird moments. Maybe the dog got to it. But the next night was when everything changed. I woke up to Ellie's scream. Not the kind of scream you'd expect from a bad dream, but the kind that cuts through the night air like a knife. I rushed to her room, and there she was, sitting upright in bed, wide-eyed, gasping for air. "Ellie, what is it? What's wrong?" I rushed over to her, shaking her gently, but she couldn't speak. Her eyes were wide, filled with terror. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. And then it happened. A noise, low and eerie, like a whisper curling from nowhere. "Jake." I froze. The voice didn't come from her. It wasn't even really in the room, but somehow it was all around us, vibrating the air. I looked down at Ellie. Her body jerked as if she was trying to resist the pull of whatever was calling her. "Jake." The whisper came again, more urgent this time. "Ellie, what's going on? What's happening?" I grabbed her, holding her tight, but her body went stiff, and for a brief second, her eyes locked onto mine, empty, lifeless. "You broke the rules, Daddy," she whispered, but her voice wasn't her own. It was wrong. Cold. Before I could ask what she meant, The door slammed open. The air around us turned ice cold, and the whispers in the room became deafening. I tried to shield Ellie from whatever was happening, but then the floor beneath us seemed to pulse, like something was crawling under it. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the room grew darker, suffocating. I could barely breathe, and that's when I saw it. In the hallway, standing in the shadows, a figure emerged, thin, tall. Its face was shadowed, but I could feel its eyes on me, empty, soulless. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. This wasn't a nightmare. This wasn't my mind playing tricks. Something was in the house, something I couldn't explain. Ellie whimpered. It's too late now. And in that instant, I knew. The forest, the quiet people, the rules, they were all real. And whatever I had done to cross them had brought this thing into our lives. I had no idea what it wanted, but I could feel it closing in, and I knew I had to act fast. I grabbed Ellie and ran. I didn't even think about it. I just ran, half dragging Ellie behind me, the sound of her small footsteps barely audible over the growing whispers. The air around us felt like it was pressing in, squeezing the life out of me. My heart pounded as we tore through the dark hallway, the shadows in the corners shifting, alive. I reached for the door, but it slammed shut before I could touch the handle. I cursed, spinning on my heels. We have to get out of here, Ellie. Now. Her small hand gripped mine, cold and clammy. She didn't speak, didn't protest. It was as if she knew, deep down, there was nowhere to run. We had crossed a line, and now we were both trapped in whatever nightmare the forest had unleashed. We reached the back door, and I threw it open. The chill of the night hit me like a slap, but there was no time to stop and think. I shoved Ellie through, stepping into the yard, my eyes scanning the woods beyond. That was where it all started, where they were waiting. And now, the forest felt like it was breathing, alive with the sound of 1,000 whispers, pulling me back in. Dad, Ellie's voice barely broke through the chaos around us. We have to go back. I turned to her, my chest tightening. What do you mean, go back? Are you out of your mind? She looked up at me, her eyes too old for her face. We have to. It's the rules. The forest seemed to shift, the trees moving closer, leaning in like they were waiting for us to make our next move. My instincts screamed at me to run, but Ellie was tugging on my arm, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that she was right, that something was pulling her in, no matter how hard I tried to fight it. Ellie, we don't have time for this, I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. I'll protect you. We're leaving this place. We'll go somewhere far away. But Ellie shook her head, her small face trembling with something between fear and determination. They won't let us leave. You broke the rules, Daddy. A chill ran down my spine, deeper than the night air, colder than the forest around us. She wasn't talking about the forest. She was talking about them. Whatever had followed us out of the woods, whatever had marked us both as their next targets. Before I could say anything else, I heard it. The low, guttural sound that made my blood run cold. The creature, the thing from the hallway. Its presence crawled up my spine like 1,000 nails scraping on bone. And then I saw it. The figure from the hallway, now standing in the yard, its tall, skeletal body nearly blending into the dark trees behind it. Its eyes glowed faintly, like dying embers, hollow and empty. It didn't move, not yet. But I could feel its gaze on us, its cold weight pressing down on me. Ellie's grip on my hand tightened. Daddy, she whispered, her voice breaking. They're coming. I barely had time to react before the air around us cracked, like thunder without sound. The trees seemed to shudder, and the creature moved, faster than I could blink. It was on us, towering above us, reaching with its long, spindly fingers. I pushed Ellie behind me, instinctively shielding her, but there was no escaping this thing. No escaping what had already started. The forest was closing in. The creatures, the quiet ones, were everywhere. I could feel them watching, waiting, just beyond the trees. Ellie, listen to me, I said, my voice hoarse, my heart racing. We need to go back to the house. We'll figure this out. We can fight it. Ellie's voice was soft, but steady. We can't fight them, Daddy. They've already won. She glanced over at the figure that stood at the edge of the yard, then back at me. It's too late. The words hit me like a punch in the stomach, and the terror that had been crawling up my spine finally overtook me. There was no escape, no way out. This wasn't just about the forest anymore. It was about rules, ancient rules, things I couldn't even begin to understand. And whatever deal Sarah had made, whatever sacrifice she had made for Ellie, it was never meant to last. In the distance, I heard the whispers rise, becoming louder, more urgent, and then I felt it. The ground beneath my feet shifted, a pulse, like the forest itself was alive, pulling us back, drawing us toward the door. I didn't want to go back there, but the whispers told me I had no choice. Ellie's voice broke through the haze of panic. They said you broke the rules, Daddy, and now you have to fix it. A lump formed in my throat. How? How do I fix it? Ellie didn't answer. She just nodded, the same look in her eyes, that same sad acceptance. The creature in the yard stepped forward, its long fingers reaching toward me. And I understood then. There was no fixing it. There was no running. The forest had claimed us, and there was only one way to restore the balance. One way to pay the price. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. I'll do it, I whispered, more to myself than to her. Ellie stepped forward, her small hand resting on mine. Her grip was calm, resolute. She knew what had to be done. And then, without another word, I turned and led her back into the woods, the whispers guiding us as the dark consumed us once more. The moment we stepped into the forest, everything felt different. The air thickened, became heavier, like it was thick with all the things the forest had swallowed over the years. It wasn't just the whispers anymore. Now, there was something else, something pulling at the edges of my mind, something dark and ancient. Ellie didn't say a word. She walked ahead of me, her little feet moving with a purpose, as if she was being guided by something unseen. I followed, my breath shallow, every step heavier than the last. I could hear the creatures, no, not creatures, the quiet ones, moving around us, their presence pressing in from every side. I could feel their eyes on me, like they were waiting for me to make a mistake, waiting for me to fail. I tried to speak, to break the silence, but the words caught in my throat. How do you talk to your 8-year-old daughter when you're walking straight into something that will end your life? Ellie, I finally choked out. What exactly do we have to do here? What happens next? She didn't stop walking. She didn't even look back, but her voice when it came was soft, like she was speaking to someone far away. We have to make things right. The forest shifted around us, the trees swaying without any wind, the ground beneath our feet softening, as if it was alive, breathing with us. A low hum started in the distance, like the world itself was vibrating, calling us to something beyond comprehension. Ellie paused for a moment, staring ahead. Then, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the key, the same key from before, the one that had brought us here. The metal gleamed in the moonlight, like it was something otherworldly, something that didn't belong. She held it out to me, her small hand shaking. "You have to take it," she whispered. I stared at it, my fingers trembling, as I reached for the cold metal. "Why me? Why can't you?" "Because," she said, her voice more distant now, "it's your turn." Before I could ask what she meant, the ground beneath us trembled, and the whispers rose to a deafening crescendo. The quiet ones were closing in. I could feel their eyes on me, watching my every move, waiting for me to make the wrong choice. I had to act quickly. I took the key, and as soon as I did, something shifted. The air grew colder. The world around me seemed to bend, like reality itself was cracking open. The forest twisted, its shadows growing longer, darker. Suddenly, the ground split open in front of us, revealing a dark, gaping hole. A portal. No, a door. A door that led somewhere else, somewhere beyond the realm of anything I knew. Ellie stepped forward, her voice low and almost pleading. "Daddy, we have to go through. It's the only way." I looked down at her face a mask of calm, but I could see it in her eyes, the fear, the sorrow. She wasn't a child anymore. She was caught in something that had nothing to do with her, something far darker than anything a kid should ever know. But I didn't have a choice. I reached for Ellie's hand, but before I could touch her, the whispers exploded into a deafening roar. Something grabbed my arm, a force so cold it burned, pulling me toward the door. I tried to fight it, to push against whatever force had hold of me, but it was futile. The more I resisted, the harder it pulled. "Ellie," I shouted, but she didn't move. She stood there, her back straight, her face still. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. The pull of the door was too strong. It was them, the quiet ones. They had me now, and there was nothing I could do but go through. I heard Ellie's voice one last time, soft and almost apologetic. "Daddy, please, don't make them angry." And then, just like that, the door swallowed me whole. I woke up in a place that wasn't the forest, wasn't anywhere I recognized. There were no trees, no whispers, no Ellie, just an endless void of gray. My body felt heavy, weighed down by something I couldn't explain. I tried to stand but stumbled, disoriented, my legs shaking beneath me. The air was thick with a suffocating silence, no sound, no movement. And then I saw it, a figure standing in the distance waiting for me. A shape, too tall, too thin, with glowing eyes. Those eyes, the quiet ones. "Welcome," it said, its voice low, like the sound of wind through dead trees. "You have fulfilled your part. Now, you are one of us." I opened my mouth to scream, to beg for my daughter, but no sound came. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't obey me. The world around me flickered, and I realized, with a horrible certainty, that I wasn't going to escape. This wasn't a place I could leave. This wasn't a place for the living. I had crossed a line, and now there was no going back. The forest had claimed its payment, and I was its prisoner forever.